Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to elevate your understanding of similes, taking you right out of those elementary school basics and diving headfirst into college-level literary analysis. I am absolutely thrilled to be your instructor today. We're going to break down how this foundational tool isn't just used to, describe things, but to generate actual profound meaning, both in classic literature and, of course, in your own writing.
All right, let's jump right in. As Forrest Gump famously said, life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Think about an actual physical box of chocolates sitting right there on a desk. Life is abstract. It's totally unpredictable, right? But that box of chocolates, that is tangible. You can see it, touch it, taste it. By connecting this abstract idea of life to a physical, familiar object, the complex concept just instantly clicks for us.
So here's our syllabus for today. First, what is a simile? Second, identifying similes. Third, simile versus metaphor versus analogy. Fourth, avoiding cliches. Fifth, crafting original comparisons. And finally, enhancing emotional depth. By the end of this explainer, you won't just know what a simile is, you're going to know exactly how to wield it. Let's get to it.
Section 1. What is the simile? Let's get a firm foundational definition down for this literary device. Okay, so a simile is a figure of speech that compares two different things, usually by explicitly using the words like or as. Here's the real secret to a simile, though. It doesn't hide. By using those specific trigger words, the writer is practically tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, pay attention to this specific comparison I'm making. I really want you to connect these two dots.
Now, we're all familiar with these everyday examples, right? As fast as a cheetah, as quiet as a mouse, as strong as an ox, as brave as a lion. Imagine taking a red teacher's pen and just firmly crossing all of these out. We cross these out in college-level writing because they're universally understood shorthand. Sure, they work great for beginners to quickly convey basic traits, but as we elevate our writing, we really need to push past that tired shorthand to find fresh ways to describe the world. Moving right along to Section 2, Identifying Similes in Text. Let's see how this builds our ability to actually pinpoint how similes function.
The crucial point to remember here is that similes acknowledge that the two things being compared are, in fact, different. They often bring together two distinct worlds, like the human and the non-human. Notice how we're bridging a literal gap between the mechanical human world and the wild natural world. Unlike a literal comparison, like say saying an apple is like a pear, a true simile builds a bridge between entirely different realms. It creates this little spark in your brain precisely because those two things do not normally belong together. All right, Section 3, Simile, Metaphor, or Analogy. This is our 201 level material. We are drawing the hard line so you literally never confuse these terms in your writing again.
Notice the comparison here. A simile uses like. Life is like a box of chocolates. You can picture a boy looking thoughtfully at a box of sweets. A metaphor, however, completely does without those terms and directly states that one thing actually is another. My life is an open book. In that case, the boy literally becomes an open book with the pages fluttering. So a metaphor is a direct equation, A equals B. A simile is more of a gentle suggestion, A shares a specific quality with B. Metaphors are direct, they're absolute, while similes leave just a little bit of breathing room.
And this brilliantly illustrates our next big distinction. Look at the simile. Learning a new language is like climbing a mountain. It's like a quick leap over a jagged mountain peak for immediate emotional impact. Now, look at the analogy. Learning a new language is like climbing a mountain. It takes time and effort, and the higher you go, the more you understand. See the difference? An analogy breaks down that complex idea into explanatory, logical steps. It's much like climbing a staircase made of gears while inspecting it with a magnifying glass. An analogy is essentially a logical argument that uses an extended comparison to explain how something works, piece by piece.
Let's transition over to Section 4, Avoiding Boring Cliches. Consider this a practical workshop on your own writing.
In essays, I constantly see overused phrases that are essentially dead language. As busy as a bee, totally overused and unoriginal. As cold as ice, fails to make any real emotional impact. Seriously, when you write cold as ice alongside a standard freezing thermometer, our brains skip right over it without registering any imagery because we have heard it a million times. But look at that fresh alternative at the bottom that actually adds detail. Cold as a forgotten cup of coffee. Suddenly, picturing that stale, abandoned mug, you actually feel that specific, disappointing room temperature chill, don't you?
So how do we fix these boring cliches? Section 5, Crafting Original Comparisons.
Let's figure out how to write some fresh, dynamic sentences ourselves. To craft an effective comparison, you've got to follow a clear path. Step 1. Choose clear comparisons with obvious connections. Ensure your connection is logical, kind of like interlocking gears working together. Step 2. Avoid overused cliches. Just bypass those tired, broken phrases we literally just talked about. And step 3. Use rich sensory details. Anchor your comparison in the rich icons of the 5 senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. If the reader has to pause and guess why you compared a car to a toaster, well, you've lost them. But connect the dots using the 5 senses and the image just jumps right off the page.
Listen to the auditory contrast here. First, her laugh was like sunshine. Okay, it's fine, but it's flat. Now listen to this. Her laugh was like the warm glow of the sunset on a summer evening. This second sentence paints a much clearer picture because it uses specific visual and tactile sensory details. It doesn't just tell you the laugh was nice. It uses warm glow and summer evening to make you physically feel the comforting mood of that specific, beautiful laugh.
Section 6. Enhancing emotional depth. Welcome to the 401 level masterclass, where we're going to analyze how famous authors use similes to generate profound meaning.
Listen to Robert Burns. "Oh, my love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June." We can see how a masterful poet takes a simple comparison between a beloved and a fresh flower to create the definitive romantic simile. He doesn't just say, like a rose. He says, a red, red rose newly sprung in June. He grounds the romance in the vibrant, temporary freshness of early summer. It is incredibly vivid.
In Stephen Crane's story about shipwrecked men desperately trying to survive, he writes, "The ocean's foam was like tumbling snow. Just look at the image of that tiny boat surrounded by massive, freezing waves." By comparing the perilous ocean to freezing winter snow, he explicitly creates an atmosphere of terrifying, indifferent cold that makes the men's situation feel even more precarious. He beautifully contrasts the cold impersonality of nature with the human warmth of the castaways.
Let's push even deeper into the epic simile. An epic simile is an elaborate comparison extending over several lines in an epic poem, comparing grand or heroic actions to natural phenomena or everyday activities. This is a technique famously used by Homer in the Iliad and the Odyssey to pause the action and build incredible narrative weight. Notice that it extends over several lines. It's essentially an entire mini-story woven directly into the main narrative.
Listen to how Homer describes Achilles' grief. Like a bearded lion when a deer hunter in dense forest steals its cubs, as bitter anger overwhelms the beast. Just like that, Achilles, amid his groans, addressed his myrmidons. It totally transforms a straightforward action into a deeply emotional, symbolic experience. Homer actually pauses the Trojan War to track this lion's bitter anger as it roams the forest. By the time he brings us back to Achilles with "just like that," we feel the primal, devastating weight of his grief.
These intricate descriptions weren't just decorative filler. They provided pauses from constant action, a much-needed breather from the endless descriptions of battle. They invoked familiar, relatable situations, created vivid mental imagery, and added layers of poetic and emotional depth. By invoking everyday situations like animal behavior, they made godlike, heroic emotions deeply understandable to regular, everyday people.
And you know, this power of comparison isn't just ancient history. It is exactly why modern songwriting relies heavily on similes to turn complex emotions into visual images, like comparing someone's inner potential to a firework. When a modern songwriter sings into a microphone and visuals of fireworks explode outward, they use this exact same literary device to turn complex internal feelings into brilliant visual images that we can all instantly recognize and sing along to.
If there is one single thing you take away from today's class, I want you to ponder this. How will you view the next song you hear, poem you read, or essay you write differently now that you understand the true power of a crafted comparison? Similes are not just decorative words, but the very way human meaning is made. They bridge the gap between our isolated minds, using shared imagery to make us feel exactly what someone else is feeling. Keep an eye out for them, and more importantly, start using them to bring your own writing to vibrant life.